Welcome to the Quantum Soul Portal podcast. Here we explore quantum healing, spiritual awakening, and the deeper journey of the soul. I'm your host, Heather Hink. I'm a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner and the founder of the Quantum Soul Portal. I work with clients around the world through hypnosis and energetic field work to support deep healing, inner guidance, and connecting with your multidimensional self. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the Quantum Soul Portal podcast. I'm your host, Heather Hink, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about 4 stages of the spiritual awakening journey. 4 stages that you may be moving through at this moment. You may have already moved through these stages, or you may just be at the very beginning of your journey wondering, what in the heck is happening to me? I want to share some of the things that I feel are not most important, but that most people experience, kind of these stages that we move through as we start going through our awakening. And I'll share with you kind of a little bit about my journey as well. I love talking about the awakening journey because it is an adventure. Let me just tell you, it is a wild ride, and not always for everyone, but I'm one of those wild riders. I jumped on the biggest roller coaster I could find, let me tell you. And my awakening experience, I think I've gone through it multiple times at this point. But I work with so many clients, beautiful, beautiful clients around the world, and I get to hear all kinds of awakening stories firsthand. I like to ask that sometimes, when I'm talking to a new quantum healing hypnosis client and I'm getting to know them for their session. And I like to find out, when did you go through your awakening and what was that like? Because everybody's a little bit different, and it's so interesting to compare all the different experiences. But honestly, so many of them are so similar. You see the similarities. And I speak a lot in this podcast about the spiritual awakening journey because we're all moving through it. We're all trying to figure out what the heck is going on and where are we going and when are we going to get there and all the fun things. But I see a lot of similarities, not only, to my awakening, what I experienced, but I recognize the same experiences in others. And it's interesting to hear how everything begins to unfold. So let's start at the beginning. What is the first stage of awakening? Well, that is actually waking up. It is moving through your awakening. And for me, I've said mine had a catalyst that came along and sort of started my old reality began to break down. It began to fall away from me. And all of a sudden, this new reality started to come into my perception. And I started out having all these crazy experiences. I think I've said before in another podcast, it was angel numbers everywhere. I mean, all day, every day. Until I finally figured out what angel numbers were. I didn't know why I was seeing them. I think I had like 100 different screenshots on my phone. I started taking screenshots every time I'd pick up my phone, and it would be 333 or 222. And then angels started appearing everywhere in my reality. And all of a sudden, my beliefs started to break open. It's like I started to perceive the world through new eyes. I had this thirst for expansion, wanting to like I didn't even know what expanding my consciousness meant, but I wanted to do it. Like, how do I expand my consciousness? I remember at the beginning of my awakening staring at the sky for hours. And I don't really know why, but I was seeing the sky in a very different way. I can remember the sky looked very etheric to me. So I must have been going through, as I was going through like a very rapid period of expansion and moving through my awakening really quickly. I just started to perceive my reality different. And it's hard, because you don't really have anyone much to talk to about it. You try to talk to people about what you're moving through and what you're experiencing, and they don't understand. They look at you like you kind of flipped your lid a little bit, and you feel that way too. You feel like you're a little crazy. I was very, very lucky because I had this beautiful soul come into my life around the time that all of this started happening for me. And I was able to really share with her what I was going through without feeling judged or feeling like I'm crazy or I'm losing my mind. And that was such a blessing. But you start to realize all of these things that you didn't know before. You start to realize that you're more than just human. You start to realize there are angels and guides, and you can actually talk to them. You actually realize you have guides. Like, I didn't know that I had spirit guides. I thought, I grew up, going to church. And so I knew of God and Jesus, and I knew of the angels, but to me, the angels were like connected to biblical time. I didn't think you could just really talk to the angels, but the angels started talking to me, and I thought that was quite amazing. So you're having all these crazy things happen to you, and you're shifting quickly. Maybe you're shifting quickly. You're starting to seek information. You're looking for all of the content. Somebody tell me what is going on. I remember I spent hours on the computer, like trying to figure out what is happening to me. And of course, when you do that, you end up finding all the rabbit holes. Have you gone down all the rabbit holes during your awakening journey? And sometimes you go through some rabbit holes you don't really want to go down, but it helps you to understand the bigger picture of what's happening. I went through that as well, kind of those dark rabbit holes of understanding what's happening with the children and the underground tunnels and, the dark things that are happening in our government with people who are very much in power and the things that they do. And of course, all of that is, you never know the exact truth of it because there's so much out there. But there were things that I was coming across and I was like, this can't be possible. But I was also saying that about extraterrestrials. This can't be real. And here they are. So it's a lot to process, and it can be overwhelming to your system, to be honest. It's exciting. I remember tarot was one of those first things that came into my reality. Like the very first things at the beginning. I remember I found this, oh my goodness, I wish I could remember her name. I don't think she does tarot anymore. She was an older lady, and she had just the loveliest energy about her. And I didn't know what tarot was. I really was not in the spiritual world at all when I went through my awakening. But I found this tarot card reading, and I felt like she was reading my life. And I was like, how is this possible? And I was hooked. You know how you get hooked on the tarot card readers? I still love to listen to them. I'll just put one on sometimes because I think it's fun. I think it's really a talent what they can do. I know there's some very talented, some not so much, but it's just fun. And so I started getting into all of these spiritual things, and then here comes the crystals. And I'd never had crystals, but all of a sudden I wanted to go to a crystal store and get crystals. And then you're looking for activations online, and then you stumble across light language, and you're like, well, what is this? Are these crazy languages that are coming out of a person's sounds and tones and things? But there's I'm feeling some energy moving through my body. And then you start looking into how to open your third eye and how to balance and align your chakras. This was my path for sure. I wanted all the things, and it was coming so fast at me. Again, my life, my current life was breaking down because we were getting ready to step out of that one and step into a new timeline and a new part of my path. and all the things were flooding in, and I wanted all the things. I could not get enough. But the hardest part was you don't really have a lot of people to talk to all these things about. You're figuring out all of this and you want to shout it to the world, but you can't. So that's a really hard part of the awakening journey that many of us go through. But you really start to shift your beliefs. It's like, for me too, I started going through these downloads. So I remember I'd be walking across my kitchen, and I would literally just stop in my tracks. I don't know why. I'd just stop, and like my eyes would start tracking back and forth. And I know that sounds really weird, but it was almost like when you're in it. Okay, so if you were to watch somebody in hypnosis and they're really deep in, a lot of times their eyes are moving back and forth. I call it tracking. They're just tracking back and forth. It's just a movement when they're in that deep state. My eyes would do this while I'm standing in the kitchen, open, but I would receive a download and a vision. And all of a sudden, it's like I would get this download and it would unpack. And my guides were teaching me as well as, on top of what I was learning. So they were helping me to understand what the fifth dimension was. They were helping me to understand what New Earth was. They were helping me to understand the shift that we're moving through. They would help me to understand frequency and how we're shifting frequency and we're aligning with the fifth dimension. And they would use very, very basic visuals to teach me. Like, for instance, they were teaching me how we create our own reality. And the visual was a person standing over a fire. And let's just say all of your problems, if you were to put all of your problems or all of the things that you don't like about your life into that fire, and then you stood over it and you stared at it and you just poured gasoline onto that fire. Well, what's going to happen? It's going to get bigger. And they said, so when you are focused on something that you don't like and you are constantly staring at it and focusing on it, talking about it and thinking about it, that is like you standing over a fire and pouring gasoline on it. It's just going to get bigger. And they said, what happens though when you turn around and you walk away from the fire and you leave it be and you put your focus on something else, you go out into the woods and you explore, the fire eventually is going to go out. It's not going to be there anymore. So they used very basic visuals, but I would get this whole explanation with the visual. Another one was radio stations where they showed me, and again, this is just what they were teaching me with, but they would show me the third, fourth, and fifth dimension as radio stations. So the third dimension was the AM radio stations, the crappy radio stations, the ones with all the static. And then the FM radio stations, sounding a lot better, but just music, not much variety. So that's the fourth dimension. And then you have like the XM radio stations, which is music and news and sports radio and weather. So it's like all the things. And so they showed me third dimension, think of it as being kind of stuck in the static. In the lower, heavier energies, you have to really tune your station to kind of get a clear, to be able to hear the station clearly. And what we were doing is we were moving through this shift where we were working on ourselves. We're shifting in frequency, both the planet and humanity. Those of us who are waking up, and we're sort of moving, and now we're moving into the fourth dimension, which is also fourth density. It depends on how you look at it. And in the fourth density, fourth dimension, whatever way you perceive it, stations are starting to sound a little bit better, but you're still kind of, you're not to the really good stuff just yet. But then after you've done your work and all the things, then you make your way up to the fifth dimension, which is the XM stations, which is your variety, where it's where all the beings are. It's where your consciousness expands. It's where you start learning healing and you start learning all of these fun gifts and abilities that you have. And you start learning that you are a star being and a star seed and a light worker and all of these things. So they did this quite regularly. They showed me timelines. I remember that visual was just me standing there with a bunch of lines spread out to the right and left. But they showed me how I was always shifting between timelines, and they showed me how on each timeline there were slight variations, but more than likely I'd never even notice. And you could move on to the lower timelines where maybe life was a little more challenging. You had, some harder things to deal with. Or you could move on to higher timelines, which is where maybe life was more easy and it flowed and you had more alignment with the things that you desired. So they taught me like this all the time. I loved it. I still get those, but I remember back then just thinking, what is happening? Because I would literally stop and then the download would come in and then the image would show and then I would get all the information, and it was pretty cool. So you start your journey, right? That is stage 1. That is the first phase of the awakening process, is you start to wake up to all of these things. And if you're like me, you can't get enough of it. You want to learn all the things right now. Super, super cool. And then the next stage, I feel, it's when the healing journey begins. This is where we start to do the inner work, and this is not the fun part. Let me tell you, I went through a massive healing process. So of course I was going through, as I've mentioned many times along this podcast, I was losing a lot of my foundations in my life, a lot of people, jobs, all the things were falling away, and I really I didn't know what to do. I was really scared. I was really overwhelmed and excited all at the same time. But I started going through what I call an emotional purging and release process. And so this is where we start doing the inner work. So as we're shifting, you are shifting your frequency, kind of going back to the radio stations to get to the 5th dimension, to get into those XM stations. You have to let go of the versions of yourself that are still attached to the 3rd and maybe the 4th dimension density. You have to let go of the trauma, the fears, the worries, the overwhelm. You have to start doing the healing for lifetimes and past lives. Some of you are doing healing for your ancestral lines, your lineage. Some are transmuting energy for the collective. There are many roles that we do as a starseed, as a light worker. We're here to do this work, whether you like it or not. You signed up for it. I promise you did. I know I want to argue sometimes about my own contract. Are you sure that I said I would come and do this work? Because I need to see a copy of that, please. But we start having to let go. We start having to let go of the old. We have to learn how to balance and support our nervous system. We have to heal all parts of ourselves that are wounded. And it's not easy. And I'll tell you, this is where a lot of people, and I think a lot of starseeds, struggle. You don't want to do the work. And I get it. You don't want to look at the things that we have suppressed or that you may have suppressed throughout your life. So as a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, this is part of the work that I do, is I help people bring trapped emotions and things that they have suppressed throughout their life to the surface. Why do we do that? Because that is density within your body, within your vessel, and holding on to those trapped emotions does more than you can possibly imagine. And I've seen it all. Physical issues, mental and emotional issues that people have tried to deal with forever, and they haven't been able to clear it, release it, figure out what's going on. And so they come in for a session. We get connected in. We either find it connected to a past life, so something has happened in a past life that they're still connected to, or they're suppressing emotions from early in childhood or early in their life. Of course, it's also, because this is the work that I do, it can also be entities and attachments and all sorts of things within your energy field. But we cannot carry that heavy baggage into the higher dimensions. It does not fit. It will not align. So you have to let it go. And what's interesting, my guides have said recently as I've tapped in with them, that they just channeled this in not too long ago. They said there are so many people right now that are being forced into their healing, forced to look at things that they have not wanted to look at, because their soul, their higher self, has chosen to move into the fifth dimension, into the higher dimensions, into the higher densities. And in order to do that, in order to align, they have to release and they have to let go. And so it's like, if you're not going to willingly do your healing work, you may be faced with a catalyst, something that comes along that is going to push you into it. And unfortunately, that can sometimes, it can be intense. It can be a loss of things in your life, be it jobs, relationships, finances. It can be some big experience that you go through, a catastrophe, something that just really pushes you out of the life you're living and forces you onto a different path. And I can say I've gone through this a few times. So I'm well aware of that type of catalyst. I don't know why my soul continues to choose that, but obviously she thinks that I enjoy this. I do not. But it always does. It always does push me onto a different path. It really does propel me in a different direction. So I can see why we do it, but still it's no fun for the human to go through. So we go through emotional purging and releasing. And what I would say is, if you are in that process right now, please allow yourself to go through it. Don't suppress it. Don't push those emotions back down. Don't say, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to look at this. Look at it. Deal with it. Get the help that you need if you need help. Because I'm going to tell you, the faster, the sooner that you move through what you need to clear and release, the easier it is for all of the other things to happen. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Let yourself cry. Get out into nature, ground, connect, release. Don't hold on to those emotions. If you are upset about something, let yourself be upset. That doesn't mean go attack somebody or go do something crazy, but let yourself get it out. It is okay. Suppression it's just one of the worst things that we learn to do. And we learn to do it very early on in childhood, suppressing our emotions. Parents always wanted us to be strong. Don't cry. You're strong. You're tough. Yeah, we are strong and tough, but crying is really good. It is a really good way of alchemizing those heavier emotions. So we go through this healing process, and everybody's different. It just depends on what it is you need. I went through a heavy one. I remember sometimes there would be days and I felt like I couldn't get off the floor for 3 days because so much was coming up. But I realized now that I was being prepared, and I had to go through a lot of clearing, a lot of releasing, to move me into a frequency where I could move into the quantum healing hypnosis work. So it was a bit of an intense period, but I do believe that it supported me on my journey. Just not a lot of fun. So we start our awakening path, stage 1, and then stage 2, we move into the healing process. And that, unfortunately, is pretty much ongoing for everyone. Layers and layers and layers that continue to come up. And so then you start to move into the multi-dimensional, like becoming multidimensional. You start to realize that you are multidimensional, and there's all these higher multidimensional aspects of self. Are you there yet? Do you realize that? You start understanding or learning that you have a light body, and you start learning about your DNA, that, we thought we only had 2 strands of DNA, but we have 12. And some people would even say we have more, but I'm going to stick to 12 for now, for this episode. And so you have 12 strands of DNA, and you go, well, why don't we know this? And the, scientists say we only have 2. We have the double helix, but they always called the rest of the DNA junk DNA. Well, when you go through your awakening and you start tapping in, that junk DNA is extra strands of DNA, which is your multidimensional DNA. And these strands are what connect you to your gifts and abilities. It connects you to your higher guidance. It connects you to your soul path and mission. It connects you to the higher realms. It is connected to the dimensions. It is like your multidimensional DNA. And so for me, when I started learning about that, I started being drawn into wanting to get DNA activations. So I would seek that out to find somebody who did that. And then I learned as I was doing it that it was to sort of awaken, to relight your DNA, to bring light back into it. And as you do, that starts to move you into higher states of consciousness. So you start to get more downloads. You have more gifts and abilities start to activate. It doesn't always happen at once. Maybe you start tapping into your guides, or maybe you start having some sort of more supernatural experiences. Maybe you start remembering more of who you are. You start remembering past lives. You start remembering your galactic lives. There's all sorts of things that can happen with the DNA. But in that stage of becoming multidimensional, you realize you have these gifts and abilities, really cool things that we can do that we're all going to be able to do at some point. You start to really connect in more with your guides, the extraterrestrial beings, the councils of light, your galactic connection. Maybe you start really moving into a deeper understanding of what it means to be a starseed, and you start seeking out people to help you connect those dots, be it a hypnosis session or maybe Akashic Records reading. And for me, along my journey, and of course this has happened over the course of years, but I have started expanding into understanding what our field of consciousness is and the different layers of our energetic field, from the physical body, the mental, the emotional body, into your causal body, your etheric body, all the different layers, all the way back to your soul field. And within these layers, this is where we can have these distortions, these traumas, the things that we need to clear out of our field. But that is just one part that makes you up. Then you expand and connect over lifetimes and timelines and parallel versions of yourself and reality. And everything is so connected. It's like this massive web of consciousness that we're connected to. But it really, when I, as a hypnosis practitioner, I've always kind of been like, I don't even know how to say it. A client will come in and they're having, let's say, a physical issue, and they've tried to figure it out. And so we go into the hypnosis session. We locate another lifetime that we're going to say they're living now. It's not really past lives because everything's happening now. They're living the life now, and something terrible happened to them in that life. And I've seen some awful, awful things. Something terrible happened. They died in that life. That energy was not, it just remained, let's just say. So it's almost like it's like a record, a data record that gets stored into your soul field that is still echoing across time. And so here you are in this life, and you're being affected in that same area of the body by something that happened to you in another life that you're not even living. And I've always been like, how is that possible? But as my guides have dropped in more of these downloads and have expanded my mind, I've got now kind of in my mind, I can see it almost, perceive it, and I'm sure I don't have it exactly correct. So I'm only sharing with you guys what I have learned, but I'm still learning. So I just want to say that I do not have it all figured out. But I see now the bigger part of your soul field. It's like this massive field of consciousness. You are this massive ball of light that is connected across all of these parts of self, all of these versions, all of these lifetimes, timelines. It's so massive. And also over the last year, I have kind of dove into divine templates and blueprints and what I kind of call the New Earth operating system, because our systems are literally getting updates. So my guides talk a lot of times in computer terms to me because it makes a lot of sense to my brain. I was in technology and web design and graphic design, and I worked on servers and computers. And so they show me how closely related our reality is to a computer system and how it operates. Kind of the back end of our reality and the front end, what we perceive, and the coding structure that makes it all work. And the divine templates and blueprints that we have that we operate by, but they've been distorted across time. And oh my goodness, I could get into so much of that, but that would be a entirely different episode. I'll probably do that one day. But I'm so fascinated by these multidimensional topics. Honestly, I want to talk about those more than I talk about anything because it's just so fun. I'm learning so much, but really it's not that I'm learning it, as I'm remembering it, because I already have this knowledge, within. I'm just chipping away at the distorted layers, the energy that needs to go, releasing that, becoming lighter. And as I do, more information comes in. So that is the next stage of awakening, is really tapping into all of those fun multidimensional topics and learning more about who we are as a higher dimensional being. And so the fourth stage, I'm going to say, is when we move through kind of that initial awakening phase, and we start to really understand what's happening and what's going on, and we are deep in our healing journey, and we're doing our inner work, and we're really letting go and releasing. And then we start to explore our multidimensionality and learning that we have a light body and advanced DNA, and we have a Merkaba. I know people like to say that differently. We have all of these multidimensional parts of ourselves that we can activate and we can work with. And then we really start diving into phase 4, which I feel is beginning to live more in that new earth energy, the new earth that we all feel as if we are moving or shifting to, which we are. We're aligning to a version of earth that already exists. She's already there. She's already ready for us. But we are aligning to her through the inner work that we're doing, through waking up and remembering more of who we are and beginning to align to the higher frequencies. Where, let's just say, New Earth is over in the XM stations. And so as we tune our radio station, we're making our way there little bit by little bit. And I feel like, though, many of us are living in that higher dimensional reality. When you really start to do a lot of work and you've kind of made it this far, you're living more in that reality. We kind of go back and forth, but you start to want to co-create with Gaia and with Source. You start to really connect to nature. You might start feeling called to want to grow your own food and tend to the land. And you might start feeling yourself called into not a new job, I won't say a job, but a new way of serving others. So maybe, you feel called to become a healer and tap into your healing abilities. Maybe those came out of nowhere like they did for me. I had no idea I had healing abilities until they just kind of came. And I'm like, oh, I did not know I could do this, but how amazing. And so you start to explore these different roles and different pathways, and you want to connect in with your purpose, why you're here, your mission, why you came. You start to really dream about living in a world that is peaceful and unified, and we work together for the greater good of the whole. There's community. Community starts to become important. You realize that you are a bridge, that you are here to do this work. You came here to do this work, to release and clear and let go, and to become the best version of yourself, because you are becoming a lighthouse. And that lighthouse is radiating frequency and light out to others who have yet to find theirs. And that is such an important role. And there's just all of these beautiful things that start aligning in your life. And I think most of us are kind of in this little in-between stage, where we see what's to come, or we feel like we know, but we're not quite there, and we're sort of still trying to figure it out. And if you're in that stage, you are just where you're supposed to be. Don't ever think that you're behind. I know sometimes as a human, we get in our human mind and we think, oh my God, I'm behind. I need to be somewhere else. But I'll tell you, time after time after time, when we talk with the guides, they always say, just trust your path. It is unfolding. It is unfolding in divine timing. Sometimes there's certain things that have to happen before we can take the next step. So the more trust that you can have that your path is unfolding, the easier the alignment becomes. Sometimes we try to control or push or force. I have my hand in the air. I've had to really work on that, letting go of control and just trusting and surrendering to the process. And when I do, everything begins to align and work out for me. So I have learned, still learning. But I think we have this beautiful new world to build and construct through our minds, our visions, our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. We are definitely going through a breaking down of our reality right now. But I also want you to not just see it as a breaking down, but also see it as we are now aligning to the next part of our path. And it really, what the team just showed me as I'm speaking, is they showed me this is the exact same thing that happened in my own life when my first awakening started. And yes, there's been multiple, I feel, but my life was breaking down. But exactly on top of that was the rebuilding, or not the rebuilding, but the next part of my path was unfolding. And when you're kind of in the thick of it, you can't see it because you're going through all the things, but it's happening. And so that's what the team just dropped in right now. They showed me that's what we're moving through. We are watching a breakdown of our reality, which is very intense. It's always intense when you go through that type of a catalyst, but it is pushing people into their awakening, which is exactly what needs to happen. But as that is unfolding, there are those of us who are ahead of the game. We're doing the work. We've done the work. We're aligning. We're connecting. We're creating these communities online, in-person experiences. We're connecting, and we're holding and anchoring a higher frequency, and that is supporting the breakdown. We're anchoring in that new earth grid, which is so powerful. So a lot is happening. So don't look at what is breaking down. Just trust and know that the plan is right where it's supposed to be. We're all here doing our job. You're right where you need to be, even if it doesn't feel that way. Keep going. We're doing great. Great job. But that is what I feel like are four very powerful stages of awakening, what I see so many of my clients going through. I'd love to hear where you are on your journey, on your path. What stage are you in? Have you begun? Do you feel like you're all the way through? Are you living on New Earth yet? Let me know. If you're on a platform where you can leave a comment, I would love to hear from you. And if you need any assistance, if you are in the emotional phase where you're doing the releasing, the clearing, the healing, and you need a little support, I offer quantum healing hypnosis sessions. I would love to work with you. We can do so much in these sessions, even if you feel that you might not be able to connect. there's still so much we can do to help you to release, clear, heal, and move into the next parts of your path. I also have the Quantum Soul Portal, which is my online community, and we do a ton of work in there. There's already a ton of tools and resources to help you at all stages of your awakening. There's even a 40 course, it's a course, but there's 40 modules, let's just say it like that will walk you through the entire awakening process. Everything that I just shared with you, but in depth and detail, along with many tools and resources to help you clear and release the old so that you can begin to align with your new earth timelines. We would love to have you in the community. You can find us at quantumsoulportal.com, or you can find my one-on-one sessions at quantumhealingwithin.com. I hope this was helpful. This is such a fun, amazing, crazy, scary, all the things process, but I'm so grateful that we're all walking it together. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you again in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Quantum Soul Portal podcast. If you'd like to explore more of my work or find ways to work with me, you can visit quantumhealingwithin.com and quantumsoulportal.com. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'll see you in the next episode.